I had been in the MTC for probably about 2 or 3 weeks, and at that time in the MTC we'd stayed for about 2 months, so about 8 weeks we were in the MTC, learning the language and so forth, and all of a sudden this came down. We heard about it, and there was all this kind of like, hushed. I understand that they're changing the mission thing, and they're going to go to a shorter mission, and it was in the spring, so it was probably the April conference, if I remember correctly. This would have been, I think, probably 1982 April conference, when they had announced. But before they announced it, that morning before they announced it, they actually had a representative of the church came down to the MTC, and they held an emergency special meeting, and all of the missionaries were in this one big hall, and they had. I can't remember now who it was, but it was one of the 70s, I think it was, that they came to tell us in advance, so that we actually found out before it was announced to the rest of the church, that this policy was coming down. And I'll never forget that there was this one particular elder. After they announced it, we're just like, whoa, this is amazing. This is pretty drastic, and so forth. I remember this one elder. He got up. They were asking for questions, and he got up and he said, "So is this? Do you think that this is inspired of the Lord, or is this just a good idea?" I'll never forget. and man, I tell you what, he just the presiding elder that was talking said, "Well, of course this is inspired. I mean, this is obviously this is inspired. This is something that that the brethren have obviously agreed to, and so forth. And of course it's inspired. And why would you even question that, and so forth? And anyway, and so kind of put him in his place a little bit, And I remember getting a letter about 2 or 3 days after that, from my girlfriend. Said, this is amazing. I've already waited 6 months, kind of thing. and so when I got there, part of the effect of that, though, actually was pretty difficult for the mission presidents and the missions themselves, because. With the elders that had been called a year prior, they actually had their choice. They could either stay for 18 months, or they could leave, or they could stay for the full 2 years. But anybody who had been out less than a year, it automatically went to the 18 months. And what it caused, I think, some consternation, I'm sure, probably with the brethren, is that it was causing a lot of the missionaries were leaving. We had the 2-year called missionaries were leaving, and then 6 months before that, there was the ones who were called for 2 years, but now we're only serving for 18 months. And so we had almost a double amount of missionaries leaving the mission field, and that caused all kinds of all of a sudden the missions were shrinking pretty dramatically. In fact, that affected our mission. Our mission, the Milan, Italy mission, was combined with the Padova mission, for example, because there just wasn't enough missionaries to go around, because there were so many missionaries leaving. And the other thing is that, quite honestly, I really, for those of you who are being called on missions for 2 years, be grateful, because that last 6 months, I really believe, is when you are the most effective. When you have the language down, you don't have to, after about, for me, I'm a little bit slower, but it took, about a year for me before I could actually I didn't have to worry about translating into Italian. I just thought in Italian. You're finally getting to the point where you really understand the language, but not only do you understand the language, but you actually can put your feeling behind it. It's not just words anymore. It's feeling. Because you're not having to struggle to make the translations. And so I just felt like that my last 2 or 3 months, 4 or 5 months was really the most effective time of my mission. I could really, be concentrated on focusing and so forth on the feeling and the spirit, and being able to just talk to people without the struggle of making sure that I was conjugating the verbs properly and so forth. So I really think that as missionaries today, as you serve your 2-year missions, that's consider it a blessing to be able to stay out there that extra 6 months, because I think that's some of the time when you're going to have the most amazing experiences of your life. I don't remember when it went back, but it was only a couple of years. And because of the amount of, how hard the hardships it caused on the mission presidents and on the missions themselves, and I think that they got feedback and so forth, and they decided to put it back to the 2 years and so forth. I don't remember if that was 2 or 3 years after that. It wasn't very long, but there was that period of time there where it was a 1.5 year mission, and I think the sisters remained, if I remember correctly. I don't think that they were shortened. So I don't remember exactly on that. I remember that I had sisters in my district and so forth, and I was serving over there, but I don't remember how long they were serving.